So it's the action. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming and tuning in. To start, I will remind council that this portion of the meeting is being recorded and live streamed to YouTube. I will remind council to speak clearly and project their voice when they are talking so people viewing at home can hear. I will now do a roll call of council for the benefit of the public watching this meeting. When I call your name, please wave at your camera and say here or present. I, Councillor McMillan, am present and chairing this meeting. Mayor Shantz.
I'm here.
Councillor Martin. Present. Councillor Merlehan.
Present.
Councillor Redicott.
Present.
Councillor Shantz.
Present.
Thank you. With that, we need a resolution to reconvene in open session. Moved by Councillor Shantz, thank you. Second by Councillor Martin, thank you. All in favor? And that is carried. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, there are no items to come forward from closed session. So we will move to item number 5, the planning public meeting. This meeting constitutes the formal public meeting required under Section 34 of the Planning Act. The meeting is for information purposes only, and no decisions will be made at this time. The application will be brought forward at a future meeting of the Committee of the Whole when staff has had an opportunity to review all submissions and prepare recommendations. All those attending will be given an opportunity to speak and are asked to submit a written outline of their oral submission to the clerk. Please contact planning staff at the township to receive further notifications about the application. Zoning. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the Township of Woolwich to the local planning appeal tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Woolwich prior to approval, refusal of a proposal, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Woolwich prior to approval, refusal of a proposal, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the local planning appeal tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party. I declare the planning public meeting to be open. There are 2 delegations here tonight. I will read the instructions to both delegations at this time. I would like to remind delegations of some guidelines for participating in tonight's meeting. Please leave your video turned off and your microphone muted until you are called upon to speak. If your microphone is on and you are disrupting the meeting, you will be muted. We like to use that power here. Please be advised that tonight's meeting does not involve a question and answer period. Any questions you ask will be noted, and the appropriate staff member will follow up with you at a later date. Staff are not available for questions this evening. However, you can always contact them by phone or email if you have further questions. We ask you that you keep your comments brief and refrain from repeating information delivered by another delegate. After you speak, please wait for any questions from council. Once there are no further questions, please turn your microphone and camera off again. You may leave the meeting after your delegation is done if you wish, or you can stay. Any disruptive behavior may result in being removed from the meeting. The first delegation we have tonight is...
Chair McMillan, can you please go to staff member Jeremy Vink to introduce the report first?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'm being told to go to Mr. Jeremy Vink to introduce the meeting here tonight. So, Mr. Vink, take it away.
Thank you, Chairman McMillan and the rest of council. This is zone change application 8/2020 for the Conestoga Mill. This is the 2 properties of 1795 and 1805 Sawmill Road in Conestoga. The property is currently zoned agricultural with site-specific provisions which allow a feed mill. The applicant is proposing to amend those site-specific provisions. Specifically, you'll notice in the report, there's kind of splitting up the proposed uses based on portions of the property. So part 1 being the easterly part of the old former mill, they're proposing a series of land uses. In part 2 being the westerly portion of the former mill, they're proposing just the banquet hall assembly hall, and a small form distillery. Part 3 is the former house, which is up against the road, which is 1795 Sawmill Road, where they're looking at the residential building and accessory uses and an office. And part 4 is the remainder of the properties, which is just uses accessory to everything in parts 1, 2, and 3. In addition, they are asking for some site-specific provisions regarding reducing some parking calculations, to limit the floor space devoted to to a public restaurant to 67.5 square meters, to place a holding provision on the property in regards to the small form distillery until such time as they satisfy any building code requirements, and to reduce the building line setback from adjacent to the street from 7.6 to 6 meters, to share the required parking between 1795 and 1805 Sawmill Road, and just to allow the accessory uses within the floodplain. They have submitted a number of different reports in support of their application. Those are all online and available for the public to read if they so desire. And if our council has any additional questions at the moment, that's it for staff.
Council, any questions for staff before we go to the delegations? I'm not seeing any. So with that, Steve Jefferson from K-Smart. Are you there, Steve?
Yes, I am.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you, Chairman McMillan. My name is Steve Jefferson. I'm a land use planner with K-Smart Associates in Kitchener, and we are serving as the agent for this application for the feed mill site. As noted in the staff information report, this is an application to revise the existing site-specific zoning that was in place for the former feed mill use. And we have requested new site-specific zoning that is generally based on the commercial zoning for settlement areas. So it's zone C3 settlement commercial. We've gone through that list of potential uses and tailored our request to a shorter list, which we believe would be appropriate for the redevelopment of this site. So we've made this request to permit reuse of the former feed mill as a mixed-use facility with event venue space and small-scale assembly uses such as a gallery, studio, and private club. We're also looking at accessory uses such as storage and warehousing and related retail. It's noted that the landowners have investigated the potential for the installation of a craft distillery. The building plans at this time do not include that use. If it is deemed feasible to pursue in the future, the landowners will have to go through the specialized design process for the equipment, subject to the approval by the township chief building official. We've had discussions with township building staff about this, and they are comfortable with this proposed approach. If this is pursued in the future, we would have the detailed plans submitted, and if they are acceptable to township building staff, then a request would be made to the council for the removal of the holding provision specifically for the distillery use. There's reference to the parking in the zoning bylaw. The parking spaces are listed in the site-specific zoning to ensure the minimum number of spaces are provided. The calculation for Part 1 is based on the seating capacity, and 62 spaces are required. We had two options of either basing it on floor area or seating capacity, and for this specific type of event venue use, it was determined that it would be appropriate to base the parking for Part 1 on the seating, the actual number of people which could be accommodated in that part of the building. The calculation for Part 2 is based on the building area, and 15 spaces are required. This results in a total of 77 spaces required by this application of the zoning bylaw provisions. The concept site plan shows that 80 spaces can be provided on site, which conforms to the zoning requirement as calculated. Mr. Vink referred to the supporting studies that were submitted with this application. For everyone's information, I'll just give a quick overview of those. There's a functional servicing report which focused quite a bit on the septic bed sizing, and that is based on the assumption that food will be prepared off-site. There will not be an in-house commercial kitchen, so that does reduce the demand on sanitary flows for the on-site septic system. A scoped hydrogeological assessment was also completed, and that was in support of the septic system design. A scoped environmental impact study was completed, and this was used to help confirm the setbacks and buffers from the adjacent woodlands and to confirm no impacts on any natural heritage features. A cultural heritage analysis was completed. The site is not on the Township Heritage Registry or list. However, staff felt it would be appropriate to have documentation on the history of the site. So this particular study did go through and document some of the site history and describe the efforts to restore and maintain the structure as much as possible. Finally, a salt management plan was completed. This is required to address the Region of Waterloo source water protection policies, and it deals primarily with snow storage areas and documentation to limit the use of salt for ice control. I'll also note we did receive the written submission from Ms. Yorish, and I would like to address the main points before she does her presentation. As noted, the parking calculation is based on current standards, and the proposed zoning will ensure that the minimum required spaces are provided. The proposed zoning also clarifies that the parking spaces may be split between the two properties that are subject to this application. In discussion with Township staff, only one event can occur at a time, either in Part 1 or Part 2, not at the same time. So that will help manage the parking requirements on site. With respect to traffic, sight lines, traffic flow, buses, that sort of thing, that will be reviewed in more detail and confirmed through the site plan process. Our zoning application has included a concept site plan, and following this meeting, based on the outcome of the input received, we do intend to follow up with the concurrent formal site plan application shortly so that that can be reviewed by all of the relevant township staff and agencies, so that when we come back to have future consideration by council of the zoning, we will also have the site plan process complete so that council can make an informed decision.
Sorry, Mr. Jefferson, you're muted there.
Okay, all right, am I back?
Yep.
Yeah.
We only
Sorry. So the fire protection analysis was considered in the functional servicing report and the building code matrix for the building design. Again, final details with respect to the fire protection on site will be taken care of through the site plan process and the building permit process. The new tile bed is shown in an area which is located outside of the floodplain, so we will meet Conservation Authority policies to ensure that the tile bed is not in the floodplain. So in conclusion, based on the analysis provided in our planning justification report, in my opinion, this proposal conforms to and complies with applicable provincial, regional, and township policies and plans. I want to thank township staff for their work on this file to date, and I will be available to answer any questions either tonight or following this meeting. As noted, two representatives from the ownership group are also online tonight, Mr. Lee Brubaker and Mr. Del Brubaker, in case there are any questions that they would like to answer tonight. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Jefferson. With that, Councilor, with the delegation. I don't see any, so thank you very much, Mr. Jefferson and your team there. We appreciate you coming out, and I will move to our second delegation. Eileen Yorish. Eileen, are you there?
Yes. Hi.
Hi, welcome. Please, whenever you're ready, start.
Well, thank you very much. Some questions were answered in regards to my letter, which is good because then we were both prepared to be good neighbors. I'm just more concerned. It's hard to argue with only one event at a time, which would, of course, keep the congestion of parking less of a factor. A neighbor of mine asked me to ask some questions that weren't in my letter. And there was, what were the hours of operation? Will there be an area developed outside as a park or recreational area for groups to have outdoor events? Will buildings be demolished or new buildings be built or planned? What will the exterior lighting be like? Will there be large signage, or will we be able to expect conservative signage like other establishments in our town? Will there be a problem with the noise bylaw and bylaw control? If the zoning change happens, will residents beside and across from the mill be able to apply for the same said change? Meaning, will there be more commercial spaces developed if this zone change goes through? And we do need a little clarification about the time frame. I understand this is just an information evening, and I'm already pleased with some of the information I've received, but we were wondering, when is the decisions expected to be announced? And what is the protocol? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar. Even if I read your website, my eyes got crossed. I'm not used to this much administration. Having said that, so we need to know a timeline for when this proposal decision will be made, when it will be announced, and if in the odd outside chance there's any reason to appeal, that should be told to us as well. And then a curious neighborly timeline of when this is expected to, if it goes through, when is it expected to happen and when is it expected to be open? So I think that covers the questions I have from myself and from people I've spoken to. And I'm open to answer any questions people might have.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. Council, are there any questions for the delegation? I'm not seeing any. So your questions were noted and there will be follow-up and they will be answered. Sorry, Councillor Shantz.
Would it be appropriate to have Mr. Vink explain the process to Eileen?
If it could be done briefly without being, boring, yes.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Shantz. I think a reminder of what the normal process would be appropriate, and we're not going to question and answer here tonight, but a normal a recap of what the normal process is. Mr. Vink, are you there? Did we catch you on a bathroom break?
I'm still here.
Okay.
I'll keep it short so that I don't put everybody to sleep. Generally speaking, from here on, we'll be working with the applicant to address issues and comments that have come from either the agencies or from the public or from other staff departments. There's no set timeline at this point because we're going to work through issues. So that could take a while. It could go quickly depending on how things work. Before the application comes back to council with a staff recommendation report, we give notice to everybody who has to be kept informed. So about 2 weeks before it goes back to council, you will be notified that the report is going to council and you'll have time to pick up the report and review it and then determine whether you wish to speak to the report that evening. So you will be notified about 2 weeks in advance of the report going back to council. I wouldn't expect the report to go back till sometime in 2021 because we don't have that many meetings in 2020. So it'll be sometime in 2021 at some point. So
Much appreciated, and thank you, Mr. Shantz, for suggesting that.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Shantz. Excellent suggestion. Thank you, Mr. Vink. Are there any other questions, Council? Not seeing any. Thank you to both delegations for coming and participating tonight. Thank you to staff. And with that, there being no further speakers, I declare this public meeting to be closed. Thank you to everyone who participated in tonight's meeting. I want to remind you that no decisions were made, but all feedback will be included in a future report. And with that, we will move on. There are no presentations, there are no delegations, there's no unfinished business. Consent items, we have a few items for approval. 921, 922, 923. Can I get a motion to accept the consent, approve the consent agenda, or does somebody want to pull something? Motion to approve? Councilor Martin? Mayor Shantz, you look like your tongue's getting itchy.
Yeah, no, I thought there was something on here, but I can't find it, so.
Okay. This is just committee of the whole, right? So if you remember, we can discuss it at the council meeting. So we had Councilor Martin move it. Councilor Shantz, did I see your hand go up to second? Yep. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Staff reports and memos. We have a memo regarding Bill 218, and Mayor Shantz, are you still okay to take the chair here?
Yes, I can do that. Sorry, I forgot about that.
I think you're just introducing Clerk Hummel.
Very good.
Thank you, Mayor.
Go ahead. Come on.
The memo is for information only regarding Bill 218, supporting Ontario's Recovery Act, which has received first and second reading in the House of Commons so far and is now out for public comment. Bill 218 proposes two major things. One, that no cause of action be taken against a person acting in good faith by someone infected or potentially infected with COVID-19. And B, that the Municipal Elections Act be amended to eliminate ranked ballots as an option for municipal elections. That's what the memo focuses on, is giving council an opportunity, if it wants me to submit your comments to the provincial government, if you have concerns about that. It also proposes to revert nomination day back to the second Friday in September instead of the fourth Friday in July, if you want to add that to your comments as well. Our professional association for municipal managers, clerks, and treasurers of Ontario has already submitted comments to the province outlining concerns about the ranked ballots and about the date change. But it's just open for discussion right now.
Okay, Councillor McMillan, why don't you start us off?
Thank you, Mayor Shantz. So to begin, I think supporting our clerks by writing a letter to the ministry, asking them to reconsider the 4 bullets as outlined in the council memo that was sent to us. Those are regarding the date changes. I think some of those are important for elected officials as well. I think changing the nomination period, I think, hinders non-incumbents and is I think not a prudent move. And then along with supporting our clerks by asking about the changes, asking to reconsider the changes to the 4 bullets in that memo, I would also suggest that we as a council should request that the ministry leave the decision regarding ballots to the municipalities. If we make the request that the decision be left to the municipalities, it doesn't commit us to anything. But I think there are some reasons why ranked ballots are important. And I'll touch on a couple of them. One, I'm sitting here with 40% of the vote. 40% of the vote. Because we had 3 candidates, 2 seats in a multi-member ward, I'm sitting with 40% of the vote. I don't think that's an appropriate mandate. We would not allow a bylaw to be passed with 40% of the vote in council. So for me to sit here with 40% of the vote, I think is imprudent. And if you look at just that race, the 3 of us that ran in Ward 1 in 2018, there was Councillor Merlehan, myself, and then Councillor Julianne Hertice. If 50% of the people wanted Councillor Merlehan as their councillor, he was their first choice, and 50% of the people wanted Julianne Hertice, she was their first choice for council, and everybody put me as their second choice. Despite me not being anybody's first choice, I would have won with 50% of the vote. The race would be 50% for me, 25 for Councillor Merlehan, 25 for Julianne Hertice, despite not one person having me as their first choice. A ranked ballot would allow that everybody could put their first choice, and in that situation, Councillor Merlehan, Councillor Hertice would have each got 50% of the first place votes, and they would be your two representatives here in Ward 1. So I think that level of representation is a more accurate representation of what the voters want. And again, with the letter that I'm asking that we send to the ministry, it doesn't commit us to anything, but I think that's why it's important that we do it. But this is just a letter asking the ministry that they leave the decision regarding ballots to the municipalities. So the 4 bullets outlined in Clerk Hummel's memo and the decision regarding ballots within the municipalities.
That was a little confusing, but but I get the picture.
It's
and
pretty. Did I do a really bad job of explaining it? Because it shouldn't be that confusing if I wasn't.
I understand it, but yeah, it was a little confusing. However, that's not what we're here to decide tonight. All we want to decide tonight is if we want to send a letter requesting that that right for each individual municipality to choose to use ranked ballots is sent to the province. Sorry, I have to look up here to see if anyone has their hand up. Fred, Councillor Redicott?
Yeah, to Mr. McMillan. So would the region have to be the municipality that are okay ranked ballots, or could we as a township? Or is that a question for the province? Or maybe Clerk Hummel could answer that.
I think Clerk Hummel could answer that, please.
I'm going to pass it to Deputy Clerk Jeff Smith.
Mr. Smith, are you here?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So the decision to adopt a ranked ballot system is up to the lower tier municipality. We do conduct our council elections as well as school board elections for the local school boards. And then we do hold a vote on the, on the regional chair. But that decision, at least for the local level, is up to the local municipality, so the Township of Woolwich.
Councillor Shantz.
Thank you. I guess through you to Mr. Smith again. What about a delay with the results? Is there a delay then or no?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. There may be a delay in results where we have to, as election officers, we would have to count the first round of ballots. And if there is not a candidate with a clear win, then we would have to go to the second choice option, and so on until we do get a clear win. A clear 50% or more. So it could cause slower results. It would also depend on the voting method, I would suggest to you. So if we're doing hand counted paper ballots, that would be a longer count process than an internet vote, for example. And there's other methods in between that would be sort of medium time frame.
Go ahead.
Would that be manual then, or would it be computer generated?
So I guess the slowest method of vote counting with a ranked ballot, I would suggest to you, is a hand counted paper ballot. So that's the sort of more traditional method where voters mark a ballot, put it in a ballot box, and then it is counted by all the election officers. Probably the fastest method would likely be a internet vote, where the first, second, third, etc. choices are all counted at the same time, and then you could do a tally fairly quickly to see, is there a majority at the first level? Is there a majority at the second level? I have not looked into, for example, paper ballots that are read through a tabulator and how quickly that would be, but that could be computer counted and might be faster than the traditional hand counted ballots.
Councillor McMillan.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Shantz. Just through you. Again, it's a good conversation maybe for us to have, but with this letter, it would just be asking that the ministry leave the decision to municipalities. And I'm not convinced that it would be the right thing for Woolwich to do. There are costs associated with it. But it would be nice that we would get to decide and not have it mandated for us.
Would you, yeah, go ahead, Councilor Merlihan.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Shantz, to either Clerk Hummel or Assistant Mr. Smith. I'm assuming that the province kind of came up with these, taking out the rank ballots because they had feedback from perhaps the clerks and such. Can you give just a little bit of background? Clearly, you've already said that the clerks have put their comments in, and I'm wondering if they support the motion for the 218 to go ahead as is, and maybe from a clerk's perspective, what are some of the issues with rank ballots? I know when we discussed it last time for the last election, it was kind of too new and a lot of took a lot to understand and educate the public and stuff. But I don't know how much has changed in 4 years. So can you speak to any of those questions for me, please?
Or Hummel or Mr. Smith? Either one.
Who wants to go? I think that, and tonight's discussion is about choice. And if the choice comes in future, if you have that choice to go to ask for a report on ranked ballots, that's where we would give you our recommendation. I can't say today in this moment that I'm opposed or in support of ranked ballots. I think we'd have to decide that at the time. So I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. Either way, we would deal with and adapt to whatever we face.
So, Councilor McMillan, did you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I think I did. I think just on top of that, there was an advocacy letter written by the clerks. Is that an association?
Yes.
Speaking out against these changes, speaking to what Councilor Merlihan was talking about there, whether they were in favor or opposed to it. The Clerks Association has come out collectively as a group against these changes. So the 4 bullet points there that I talked about, that was supporting our clerks along with the advocacy that their association is putting forward on their behalf. So yes, I did put that forward as a motion.
As a motion, can I have a seconder for that then? Anyone want to second it? Councilor Redcock?
Oh, I thought we were gonna lose her.
All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. So Clerk Hummel, if you can put that together for me, thank you. And I'll turn the meeting back over to Councilor McMillan.
Thank you very much, Mayor Shantz. Moving on to further in staff reports and memos, 10.2, 1 tandem snowplow sander truck award, and we have Mr. Coupe with the recommendation for us.
Thank you, Chairman McMillan. To Mayor Shantz, members of council, we have before you report IS 24-2020 as a public works report requesting approval for the tender award to Team Truck for the for a tandem snowplow. The price had come over budget. We are requesting that council award the tender regardless, given that we do have a truck that we are taking to auction, and with that auction pricing that we will receive, we fully expect to cover that the difference, as well as being able to put money back into the vehicle reserve fund. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions council may have.
I've got a question. What's going on in your background?
That is a Canadian flag, Chairman McMillan, and a Woolwich bag to my, I guess that's my right shoulder, it'd be your left shoulder, but I just wanted to remind myself where I am. I'm representing an incredible organization, and we're within one of the best countries in the world. So
excellent. Thank you very much. Council, any questions for Mr. Coupe's background or for the tender? Councilor Martin?
Yeah, thank you. Through you to Jared. on the snowplow, is it a one-way or two-way plow?
It is a two-way plow. Chair McMillan to Councilor Martin, it is a two-way plow.
Excellent, because the guys were asking me yesterday, and I said, I don't know. And they want
It is a-
plow.
Yep.
Good.
Excellent. Anyone else? Councilor Merlehan?
Through you, Chair McMillan, to Mr. Poupé. Will this snowplow be able to go over speed bumps on streets, if that's a potential possibility in the future?
Through you, Chairman McMillan to Councilor Merlehan. If speed bumps are installed within the Township of Woolwich, yes, the snowplows would be able to traverse those speed humps, albeit slowly, but yes, they could.
Anyone else? There is a recommendation in the report. Would somebody care to move the recommendation? Councilor Merlehan, second. Councilor Shantz, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Moving on, there's no other business. The outstanding activity list, does anybody have anything they'd like to discuss? Not seen anything. Correspondence, we have 5 letters of correspondence there. Does anyone want to discuss any of that? I don't see any. Public notice, I just have to read this.
Great.
So notice of intent to consider an amending bylaw to impose fees or charges for building, planning, fire, and general services. The Council of the Township of Woolwich gives notice of its intent to consider a bylaw to amend fees or charges for building, planning, fire, and general services on November 10th, 2020 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers situated at 24 Church Street West in Elmira, and live stream to the Township of Woolwich YouTube channel. We have no notice of closed meetings. Sorry, that's incorrect. On the other side of the page here, we do have a notice of closed meetings. That closed meeting of council will be held on Monday, December 7th, 2020, and Friday, December 18th, 2020 at 9:30 a.m. electronically in accordance with Section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001 for education and training purposes, and that's hosted by the Region of Waterloo. Do any councillors have a notice of motion? With that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Sorry, I have closing remarks to read here. I set them aside so I wouldn't lose them, and here we are. I'll do the motion to adjourn first. Anybody can't read the
I would finish.
Okay, sorry, I thought this was just about the staying on. In closing, council would like to thank all who participated in the meeting and all who tuned in tonight on our YouTube live stream. Next week's council meeting on Tuesday, November 10th will be televised on Rogers Channel 20, as well as on our YouTube live stream. Please join us by watching in either of those 2 ways. Council members and staff, I will remind you to stay connected on Zoom until we receive confirmation that the live stream has stopped. Good night, everyone.
Now do
And
your
with
motion.
that, a motion to adjourn. Councilor Shantz, thank you. Second. Councilor Redicott, all in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.